Today you are going to learn the best way to make a 3D scene similar to this one from a MagnatesMedia video and all inside of After Effects. I'm gonna break down every single step of it, so with no further ado, let's get into it. The first step will simply be open a new After Effects project. Now what you're gonna have to do is simply import a bunch of pictures to create a scene that you wanna then convert it into 3D. So now I'm simply gonna import all of my pictures. So what we're gonna do is simply place everything up to actually create a scene that looks actually decent. So what I'm gonna do is simply I'm gonna keep the grass. So I just finished creating my scene. So now what I'm gonna do is simply do the following for every layer. So I'm just gonna go to adjustment, brightness and contrast. I'm simply gonna put the brightness down to make everything darker. I'm just simply gonna follow the style direction that MagnatesMedia did in his original video. So I'm gonna put everything darker. Now as you can see, everything is darker in this scene. Now what I'm gonna do is simply make sure to save this project, and I'm gonna open a new After Effects project. Now what I'm gonna do is simply import my PSD inside of this composition. I'm gonna import it right there. I'm gonna click on OK. So this is how it looks like inside of After Effects. So what I'm gonna do is simply double click into this composition. Now what I'm gonna do is simply import a background inside of my scene. So I'm simply gonna search a thunder background. So I'm just gonna pick this one like this, right there. I'm gonna slide it all the way down, scale it up a bit. Now the best way to go on about making a 3D scene inside of After Effects is simply using the 3D Pro plugin. It is basically a plugin that will convert any After Effects scene into a 3D scene with the button of one single click. It's actually super powerful. The link will be in the description, and I got you guys with a discount code that will get you $5 off. But if you're not ready to do the investment yet, I'm gonna show you an alternative way where you don't have to use the plugin to make a 3D scene. So let's start with the first way. Now that you have your scene set up, what you're gonna have to do is simply click on create a 3D scene in layers. Now if I go to one view and I select two views, as you can see, my whole scene got converted into 3D. It's like magic basically. Now what you can do is simply make the room smaller or bigger. I'm gonna make it bigger because it's gonna have a lot more depth that way. Now I'm gonna go back to one view, and now what I'm gonna do is simply import a 3D model of a statue. So I'm simply gonna do just that. I'm gonna import it right there. Now click on OK. Now I'm simply gonna drag it all the way to the end like this, and if your background is not far away enough, you can just push it like that. As you can see, because of the plugin, my layers are auto scaling themselves, so you don't need to manually scale the layers when you push them back in the 3D space. Now as you can see, I have my 3D model just standing right there, which is pretty cool. So I'm just gonna push it back a little bit, and I'm gonna scale it up a lot more so it can be visible. I'm simply gonna place my 3D model correctly like this. Now what I'm gonna do is simply control the 3D camera. So I'm gonna go to the camera control, I'm gonna click on P, I'm gonna add a keyframe at the first frame, and I'm gonna go all the way forward like this, and then I'm gonna go back to my first frame, and I'm simply gonna make an animation simply by sliding the Z position like that. Now I'm simply gonna select all my keyframes, click on F9 to smooth them all. Now play the animation back, it gives me something similar to this. But we can still add a lot more to it for it to look better. So what I'm gonna do is simply click on the camera shake button right there. And as you can see, it's gonna add a shake to the camera so it can look a little bit more realistic. So here we have the shake, but as you can see, there's going on out there. So what I'm gonna do is simply select my background and simply click on expand selected layer, and it's gonna expand my background, so no more black borders. And in here you can also control the frequency, the intensity, and the speed multiplier of your shake. It really depends on you. Now what I'm gonna do is simply click on Ctrl A, then Ctrl Shift C to make a pre-composition. So I'll simply create a new adjustment layer, and I'm simply gonna add some effects to make it look better. Now what I can do is simply throw some overlays that I found on YouTube. Now I'm gonna simply throw some embers overlays, some smoke overlays, just to make it look a little bit more realistic. Now what I'm gonna do is simply add some overlays to make it look more realistic. So I'm simply gonna add a smoke overlay right there, and I'm simply gonna place it perfectly. So this look decent, so I'm gonna scale it up. I'm gonna go to normal, then I'm gonna go to screen, and I'm gonna scale it a lot more like this. And now I'm gonna click on T, and right where it ends, I'm simply gonna add a keyframe right there, and I'm gonna add another keyframe right there. And at the last keyframe, I'm gonna put it at 0%, so it cuts smoothly. And I'm also gonna add a numbers overlay, so I'm simply gonna scale it up, and I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna go to normal, then I'm gonna go to screen. Now what I'm gonna do is simply click on Ctrl A, Ctrl Shift C to pre-compose everything, and then what I'm gonna do is simply create an adjustment layer to simply make everything looks better. So I'm gonna click on new, I'm gonna click on adjustment layer. Now I'm simply gonna try to put as much good looking effects as I can. I'm gonna add a really good effect that's called Quick Chromatic Aberration 3. This is actually a plugin, a free plugin that you can actually install, and it's really gonna add a lot of sauce. So I'm simply gonna go to Stylic, then Distort Uniform. I'm gonna place it at 1. I'm gonna place it at 3. Distort Aberrate, I'm gonna put it at 2. For the blur, I'm gonna put it at 1. So this is how it looks. As you can see, it's really clean, and I did not really take that much time to set up my 3D scene, since it was done automatically because of the 3D5 Pro plugin right there. Now I'm gonna show you guys the other way to do it without the plugin. So now what you're gonna have to do is simply make sure to convert every single layers into a 3D layer, like so. Now what you're gonna have to do is simply click on there, click on new, and then click on a camera. Now simply make OK. Now what you're gonna have to do is simply go to one view, then go to two views, and you're gonna have to select every single one of the layers and push them back. I suggest you take the background layer first and push it back the furthest, like this maybe, and you're gonna have to scale it back up so it can fill up, and you're gonna have to scale it back up so you can fill up the camera frame. Okay. Now you're gonna have to do this with all of your layers. It's gonna be a long process, but it has to be done. Now that you place every single layers in the 3D space and that you scale them all separately, what you can do now is simply import your 3D model, and from now on it's literally the same process. You're simply gonna have to place him, make sure he fits in the composition, then you're Now what you're gonna have to do is simply click on the 3D camera. You're gonna have to click on position. Now what you're gonna have to do is simply create a new null layer, and you're gonna parent the camera to the null. Then you're gonna convert the null into a 3D layer, and now you're gonna have to make a keyframes to create your animation. So that's what I'm gonna do just now. And from now on it's gonna be the same process as before. It's just that the only thing that changes really is that it's really longer than the first method. It's less efficient, and really there's a lot of problems that you can encounter with this method. So this is why the 3D5 Pro plugin was created by me, so that you can literally optimize your workflow. It's not being scaled up to your scene properly. So yeah, now you can have your animation like this. So as you can see, the animation is still decent, but it's really long. But yeah, you know how to do a MagnatesMedia 3D intro inside of After Effects. So if you like videos like this, I think you will probably like my video about Imangadzi and how he animates any images into a 3D animation. I'll see you out there.